Oh, look, there's the official welcome sign of Illinois, the construction arrow. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Get Out and Ride. It is day 6 of Chicago to Houston, or what is now Houston to Chicago. And I just left out of Paducah, Kentucky, and right up ahead of me you can see I am getting ready to cross the state line back into Illinois with about 375 miles left of this trip until I get home. So it probably won't be too exciting of a riding day for me today, since this part of the route was not originally planned. If you saw yesterday's video, you know I did a bit of a reroute to get around some storms. And so I'm thinking for the most part I'll probably just keep it easy today and kind of stick to interstate, just so that I can get home in a decent time today rather than catching all the back roads. Back roads in Illinois, I've got plenty of opportunity to do those, so I'm not quite as worried about it as I was in some of the more distant states. So I'm going to go ahead and keep pushing along here now that I'm back into Illinois, and I will check back in with all of you later. Oh, look, there's the official welcome sign of Illinois, the construction arrow. I love how Illinois welcomes me back. In the past week, I've been over a huge swath of the country riding, and not until I get back to my home state do I get stuck in traffic and construction. Ah, Illinois. Take it all in, folks. Alright, so as you saw, it hasn't been real exciting scenery today, but it's been a good day of riding still. Cruising up and down the interstate isn't necessarily my favorite thing to do, but in this case it's the most efficient way for me to get home on a Sunday afternoon and get things together and kind of clean up after this trip. So it's been a great day. Overall, the entire trip has been fantastic. The temperature's been dropping as I go further north, which has been fantastic. We're down to an air temperature of 83, the lowest I have seen in over a week. So that's pretty welcomed. But it's everything's gone pretty well. We are now 98 miles south of Chicago, and the current trip odometer is at 2,306. So I will be right about 2,400 miles for this total trip as I pull back into my garage in Chicago. And that's kind of interesting to see, because in a previous video I'd mentioned that the trip odometer hit 1,200 on the dot when I hit my final destination in Houston. No tenths, exactly 1,200, and so I'm going to be almost exactly 2,400 when I pull back into my garage, which is kind of interesting, seeing as how my routes down and back were completely different. So, not really important, but just kind of a fun fact. Alright, so I guess the real main question right now is, how did the new 2018 Goldwing perform on this trip? Well, the short and simple answer is exceptional. I have been incredibly pleased riding this bike. Doing 2,400 miles on it has been amazing. If you watched my first video, you saw I bought this bike back in March and sold my 2012 Yamaha Striker and bought this instead. So when I left for this trip, I had just shy of 1,500 miles on the bike, and had just done the first service on it. So this was my first actual trip on this bike. And I have to tell you, I'm pretty spoiled for doing it. I can't imagine doing this trip on my 2012 Striker. I've done traveling on that bike and I enjoyed it, but to put in the kind of miles that I had to every day on this and doing it back to back, it would have been rough. Not that the bike would have performed poorly. The bike performed great. That was never an issue, but it's a cruiser. It's just not designed for this type of use. And so just sort of the toll that it would have taken on my body. I mean, even trips that I had taken in the past, you know, putting in a 400 or 500 mile day on that bike, you're pretty fatigued at the end of the day. And that's really just a matter of there's really no wind protection or anything on that bike, so you're just out there getting battered by the wind all day long and all that buffeting. My loud pipes, which I loved, but you deal with that droning sound all day long, and if you're wearing a full face helmet, it kind of gets up inside and echoes around inside the helmet. So at the end of the day on that bike, as much fun as you have riding, you're pretty worn out. I can remember just really wanting to take a nap by the time I would end the day on that bike. And I had tons of fun doing it. Trust me, this is not a complaint at all. It was just, though, I was a little fatigued by the end of the day. And on this bike, almost no fatigue at all. It's incredible. You know, just the general comfort that I get, the incredible wind protection I get, keeping that windscreen all the way up at high speed. I don't have to deal with the buffeting. I don't have the loud exhaust going on at, you know, 70, 80 miles an hour. I have very minimal wind noise, so I'm really not even, there's no need for earplugs or anything. I'm not really listening to much wind noise. It makes it really easy to go ahead and just listen to music and relax. I can hear the flat six just sort of purring away, and I can hear the tires on the pavement. It's really kind of comforting. Like, I really enjoy just droning through miles on this bike. And as far as like technical performance, there have been no hiccups, no quirks. The bike has really performed flawlessly, which that's not really amazing in any way, shape, or form. That's kind of expected. This bike has been like developed over the years to do exactly that. So there's no big shock there, but it has performed incredibly well. It's had zero issues. The only questionable problem that's popped up, and I don't put this on the bike because it's an aftermarket part. I had an issue with my right fog light, not the fog light itself, but the daytime running feature of that fog light. I use the Pathfinder LED fog lights on this bike. There's several different fog lights that are made for this bike, including the Honda OEM version, and I went with the Pathfinder version because I really like the way that it functions. And when I got to Houston, I noticed that the daytime running light on the right side was out. The fog lights still function normally, and so I've used that as I've needed it through the trip, but the actual daytime running light was out. Not a major deal. I've got to check it out. It could be an issue with a wiring harness or something. It connects right into the Honda factory wiring harnesses for the fog lights. So I'm going to go ahead and check into that. And more importantly, SoCal Moto Gear, who sells those Pathfinder LED lights, I contacted them as soon as I noticed that there was an issue and just gave them a heads up, kind of saying, hey, I realized that I've noticed my daytime running lights out on the right side. And they even said the same thing, just double check all the wiring harnesses first, which I could have done on the road, granted, but it really wasn't an emergency. My fog lights were fine, and that was more important. So I really didn't feel like taking time out of my vacation to pop body parts off and check wiring harnesses, because it really wasn't a major mechanical issue. So I'm going to do that when it's back in the garage, when I go ahead and look things over after the trip. But I think what's amazing, though, is once I gave them that heads up, they said, yeah, go ahead and check those harnesses. if all those harnesses check out, just let us know immediately. They are fully prepared to go ahead and ship a replacement light out under warranty and get that to me as quick as they can. So I thank them a lot. I'm really happy with the customer service for them. They wasted no time in getting back to me and making sure that it'll be taken care of if there is an issue, because they've only been on the bike since March, and this is the first of anyone I know that's running those lights that have had a failure of any kind. So it's kind of interesting. So I'll go ahead and take care of that when we get back, but otherwise that's the only actual failure there's been. At this point, it's just a matter of cleaning tons of dirt and bugs off the bike. Otherwise, I've been incredibly impressed with it. The seat has been great. I know a lot of people complain about the stock seat on the 2018 and 19 Goldwings. I had some issues with it too, so it looks like the stock seat, but it's not. I actually had John Conley at Bike Solutions down in College Station, Texas, do the Wingsoft upgrade to this seat. Not on this trip, even though I was nearby. I actually had it done a couple months ago. I shipped it down to him and he shipped it back, and that made a huge difference over stock. So I've been really happy with that. It got me through this trip. I still get discomfort. Like I'm not anyone to sit down for hours and hours at a time and be comfortable. But throughout this trip, I'll easily go a couple of hours before I jump off and stop to get fuel or whatever. So it's been perfectly comfortable for me. I've had no real issues. I don't see any need to change the seat or do anything. The Wingsoft upgrade seems to be getting the job done for me. And so as far as engine performance, I know a lot of people ask about mileage. Overall, so far, I've been averaging about 45 miles per gallon, and that's over the course of the entire 2,300 miles I've got on the trip meter so far. And it's been doing really well. And really, I haven't had any major concerns, because when I kind of time my stops out, my stops are based on kind of my personal comfort when I know I want to get out and stretch, and that sort of thing. It really more so than fuel. This bike has more range than I do. I could easily get 250 miles out of a full tank. And so really, most of the times I've been stopping for fuel, I've still got easily 2 gallons of fuel on board when I'm filling up. So I really haven't had to stretch out the range at all. But going back to my 2012 Striker, there have been some times on this trip where that might have been a little bit tricky. On that bike, I got about 120 miles to a tank before I needed to kind of start really getting uncomfortable and looking for a gas station on that V-twin, and that was about a 4-gallon tank on that bike. And there were some sections of this trip where I was really kind of out in the middle of nowhere, where it got a little sketchy around that mark. Where, mind you, on this bike I had no issues. I still had easily a half tank of fuel at that point, so it really wasn't an issue. But if I had been on the Striker, it might have been getting a little stressful at that point, making sure that I found somewhere to get fuel. But yeah, I've been really happy with the bike, and it's been a solid investment for me. I think it's living up to every expectation I had for it. And I think more importantly, doing a long trip like this is where you really kind of figure out what works and what doesn't. I try to kind of get a lot of that taken care of working up to the trip, and kind of changing some things and modifying some things. And so I really had no issues. Like getting back, I have nothing that I need to change before the next trip. Just clean everything up. You know, everything is functioning the way that I need it to, obviously, except that fog light. I'll deal with that. But I mean, as far as like comfort wise and amenities, it's getting the job done. I have everything that I need, so that's really great news. But overall, like I said, it's been a great trip. I'll put up a picture here real quick to show you the tracking information from the bike that shows the entire route, door to door, and the total mileage once I'm actually fully back in Chicago after I record this. So I think that's about it. It's been a great trip. The bike's performed incredibly well. Saw some incredible scenery, and I hope you enjoyed a lot of the videos. I thank you for coming along with me and joining me on this ride. Hopefully for some of you it's inspired to get out and do some of your own trips. And that's about it. Thanks again, everybody. So real quick, I think in the coming weeks I may do some quick reviews on some of the gear that I've been using on this trip, because I have had some questions about some of it. And so look forward to some of those videos. And if you haven't yet, make sure you click the subscribe button below so that you can kind of keep pace as I add some of these videos. And you can also go ahead and click that little bell icon to make sure you're notified as soon as I post new videos so you don't miss out. And until the next time, I'm going to call this the official end of this ride and the end of the videos for this ride. So again, thanks again for coming along. Hope you enjoyed it. And make sure you get out and ride. Be safe. Take care, everybody. And I'll see you on the next one.